And this is Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and I am happy to be here on the last day of June, June 30th, for today's livecast. And I am realizing as I do this that I didn't send the e-newsletter that I prepared. Got distracted this morning, so I'm going to send the e-newsletter while I'm live here. I've already written it, it's all ready to go. So I'm going to send it. You should see it in your inbox in a few minutes, and I will post a link to the description in the comments below. Can't believe I forgot that. I'm glad. I knew something was a little off this morning. So let's see. Campaigns. We'll go over here and send the e-newsletter. This is our July e-newsletter, which will be relevant for the coming month of July, even though today is the last day of June. And I've now sent it. Wow, look at that. And here is the link. So I will discuss some of the things that I mentioned in today's e-newsletter. Here it is over in the comments. That's what it will look like when it shows up in your inbox. No huge news in this particular e-newsletter. I do mention that we have now fulfilled all pre-orders for the Between Two Castles expansion, unless you just ordered it like last week and then shipping is in progress. But that fulfillment went surprisingly well given the state of worldwide freight shipping right now. I also talk about conventions and events a little bit in this e-newsletter. Geekway to the West is my favorite convention to just go to and play games for a couple days, and it is coming up in October 5th through the 7th. And they still have some openings at Geekway. And I'm really excited about this convention. I think they've done a great job heavily encouraging people to only attend if they are vaccinated. It isn't a requirement, but they are heavily encouraging it. Of course, I'm vaccinated because I want to keep the people around me safe and I want to keep myself safe. And so, if you're looking to come and play games for a few days and you are vaccinated, I highly recommend Geekway to the West. I also mentioned the Stonemaier Games Design Day, but currently the Design Day is sold out. But if you're interested in the Design Day, which is kind of an event where you come and either playtest games from designers from around the country and St. Louis, or if you have a game that you want to playtest with other people that you've been working on, you can bring that to Design Day. But it is sold out right now. It is a fairly small event, and but you can sign up for it to get on the wait list or to be notified about it in future years. I'll come back to the newsletter in a little bit. I see have a few questions here. Patrick says, did I ever play the Lord of the Rings LCG? I played the online version of it, which I've heard is a little different than the paper version, but I have played the online version a couple times. I have a video about that somewhere on my YouTube channel. Carol says she's starting her Sleeping Gods campaign with a friend tomorrow. Any recommendations on anything easy to miss? I'm trying to think back. It's been a few months since I played through my Sleeping Gods campaign. I think if there's anything that we missed right off the bat. I mean, the tutorial is really good. I vaguely remember something that wasn't in the tutorial that was a little hard to find related to combat. Oh yeah, there was something related to combat that I missed. So I don't know. I would just recommend, it was in the rules. We found it in the rule book. So I would just recommend going through the combat rules a couple times after you run through the tutorial combat to make sure you really understand that. That's probably the most complex aspect of the game. But other than that, yeah, I hope you have fun with it. I really, really enjoyed Sleeping Gods. In fact, while I was working out, I was listening to a podcast that included designer Ryan Lockett, like literally 20 minutes ago, where he appears on what was the podcast called? It was the Space Biff Space Cast. So that's Biff, BIFF, space-Biff, Space Cast. And Ryan Lockett appeared there to talk about Sleeping Gods and his other games. And Ryan, as a designer, I have a lot of respect for him, and it was really interesting to listen to what he had to say on that podcast. Let's see if there's any other questions, and I'll jump back over to the e-newsletter that I just sent out. Rick says he just got a quote from his game back from a manufacturer. And he got a quote for $23 per game. That's a big, expensive game, Rick. And he said they are asking me for carton size. They said as long as each carton is under 15 kilograms, each carton can contain as many copies of the game as possible. Would there be any reason I would choose a carton size other than the maximum that could fit per carton? Usually, that's interesting. Usually, I mean, I work with Panda Manufacturing, and they usually just set the carton size based on what they can maximize and fit onto a container. I think it depends on the size of the game. Scythe, there are 4 games per carton. For most of our kind of standard size games like Wingspan, we fit 6 per carton. Rick's asking, would there be any reason I would choose the carton size other than the maximum that could fit per carton? Given that there's a weight limit there, I mean, the only reason that we've ever made a carton smaller than what Panda offered was for metal components that can really add to the weight, like metal coins. We could pack a ton of metal coins into a big carton, but it would be so heavy for someone at a warehouse to move that we've reduced the carton to a much smaller size. So, but given that you have a weight requirement of a weight limit of 15 kilograms, no, I would put everything in there that you could fit. Yeah. Shaked says that he is ordering. He ordered the Stonemaier Games magnifying glass that we did for April Fools a year and a half ago, or a little, almost just over a year ago, and he'll be raffling it off at StoneCon. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. What is StoneCon? And also, I wanted to ask a question. Sometimes I forget to ask you all questions unless you bring them up. But today's question, I had a question of the day. We have recently added something to our website. You may have found it. It's kind of sneaky. I haven't blogged about it yet. We added a Stuff We Love page. This was an idea that Alex had. Alex saw this on another website under the category of like brands we love. And we opened that up a little bit and just posted stuff that we love. Alex and Joe and I posted a few different things that we are loving right now. And so feel free to check out that page on our website. I don't think I even mentioned it in our newsletter. I should have mentioned it there. I'll make a note to include that in the next one. But what do you love right now? Like what book or TV series or movie or campaign game or simple game or complex game? Name one thing that you are just really loving right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or just name it. Name the thing that you love right now that you're thinking about. It could even be food. We thought about putting food in there. Music. It really anything that you are loving right now that you want to share with other people. Feel free to mention it in the comments below, and I will make sure I put that in our next e-newsletter. Speaking of the e-newsletter, the other things I mentioned in today's e-newsletter, I mentioned that in next month's e-newsletter, I will be revealing Rolling Realms, our new upcoming game. This is the full fancy printed game of the print and play game that I designed last year in the early days of the pandemic. And I'm really excited to share like the final versions of the realms, the final components, and some surprises that you'll see there. Early reviewers already have it, but they'll be waiting a while before they can actually talk about it. But I'm excited to really start talking about it and revealing all that final stuff to you in early August. I also talked about the Wingspan nesting box, and yeah, there's actually maybe the most important part of the newsletter, but I buried it a little bit, is that if you want a launch notification for when we start accepting pre-orders for the Wingspan nesting box, which is a box and an organizer for all Wingspan stuff, past and future. Feel free to just click on that link and get a launch notification. And that will help us in multiple ways, because it'll help us decide how many we're going to make, how many we need to make in the first print run. And it will also help us figure out where we need to actually ship those games, which fulfillment centers we need to send those nesting boxes to. I'm waiting on the fourth prototype, but it shouldn't be too long now. I think I'll get it in maybe a week or two. And after that, we're pretty much ready to go to print. We've done the art for the box, the inside. We're just waiting to finalize some of the plastic trays. I also shared that Wingspan is now available on Xbox, and the iOS release for Wingspan Digital will be in just a few weeks. And also, Viticulture is now in beta on Board Game Arena, and Tapestry is now in alpha on Board Game Arena. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, those were the main updates in this month's e-newsletter. If you have any questions about that after you receive it, feel free to let me know. I have some other topics I'm gonna talk about today, but I will, and I need to actually remember to do. I always put our e-newsletters on the news page of our website, so I'm kind of reminding myself to do that right now. It's some stuff that I'm clicking through. But yeah, I will do that in a few seconds. What else is going on today? So, chocolate of the day. So Megan and I, this is related to a trip that we took. Megan and I went on a short trip last Thursday and Friday to a place called Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois, which I had never been to, but it is a massive, beautiful forest with some incredible hikes. Like we went on really 4 incredible hikes, ranging from fairly hard to very, very easy. There was a really nice range of hikes in there. And a lot of them took us down into lush forest valleys with giant moss-covered stone walls on either side of us. It was like entering a new world, or entering it felt like kind of a Lord of the Rings fantasy world down there. It was enchanting just to be down in these cool forest canyons. And while we were there, there was one restaurant we went to that was really, really amazing. It was called the Iron Whisk. And they had a lavender chocolate fudge using local lavender that was absolutely delicious. And so that'll be my chocolate of the day. I've actually finished off my my allotment of this fudge, but it was really delicious, and everything at this Iron Whisk restaurant was really delicious. So if you're ever in this area of Southern Illinois and you're looking for someplace beautiful to go and someplace good to eat while you're there, I highly recommend Shawnee National Forest, and the Iron Whisk specifically was a really great restaurant to visit. So that was what we did last week, and that is my chocolate of the day today. Do you have an indulgence that you are enjoying today? That's something that you are treating yourself on this fine day? I actually also went to Jenny's Ice Cream for the first time in a long time yesterday and got some good darkest chocolate ice cream there. Even if you darkest chocolate is a chocolate they have a flavor they have there that doesn't have milk in it. It's dairy free, but it is so delicious, so delicious. I highly recommend getting that if you like dark chocolate ice cream. Ignore the whole dairy free part of it if that isn't appealing to you for whatever reason. It is just delicious ice cream. What else is going on? I'll scroll through and look for some questions here. Covray just got the Castles expansion, the Secrets and Swears expansion. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that review, seeing your thoughts on that. Tim says, two questions halfway tied to my weekend Wingspan experience. Why is the Song of Rainbow Lorikeet using the Wingsong app while playing Wingspan restricted? Oh, I have no idea. We have no association with the Wingsong app. It's a completely independent thing from Stonemaier Games. So that's really interesting. I don't know why, but I would ask the creator of the app to see why that is. And Tim says, what can us Hoosier bird lovers, these are people in Indiana or Hoosiers, what can Hoosier bird lovers do about this virus going around amongst birds at bird feeders? You know, I wasn't aware of that, Tim. Can you let me know a little bit more information about that? I wasn't aware of a bird feeder related bird virus, but that sounds something to know more about and to share. It's probably something about that in the Wingspan Facebook group that I'm just not aware of. So feel free to illuminate me. I'm adding one little touch to our website right now, just adding the e-newsletter to the news page. Here we go. And it's there. Chad says, are you still open to or pursuing new game designs for a new game in the Scythe world? If there will someday be another game in the Scythe world, just to make sure it's clear, it won't be a Scythe game. It'll be just a completely new independent game in the Scythe world. And if someone does design it, I'll be the designer of it. I am still interested in doing that someday. Yeah, I love the world. It was nice to kind of take a break from it for a little while, but I do look forward to someday revisiting that world with a completely new game. And still, of course, supporting the original Scythe game as well. This wouldn't be a sequel. It wouldn't be a replacement for Scythe. It would be just a completely different game that exists in that world. Shaked says, StoneCon is a convention he runs yearly in Israel. It's a convention for exclusively Stonemaier games. I did a video invitation for it 2 years ago. That's right. Okay, yes. Sorry, I have a terrible memory. But I think that's awesome that you've been running this convention. Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you're doing for it this year. That's awesome. I love the idea. I mean, I love gaming events in general, but it means a lot to me that someone would create an event specifically around Stonemaier games. So thank you for doing that. Maddie says that they're loving the King's Dilemma. I can't wait to play more of the campaign. And yeah, it is such a brilliant game design. I love how simple it is. I mean, it is a very simple legacy game, which I think is a huge asset for it because it means there's no real rules overload that you ever need to bring to a session of the King's Dilemma. It's so simple every time you play. In contrast to that, I played a game. It's not a legacy game, but it's a game with a ton of rules complexity and overload. I played Oath for the first time on Sunday, and I'll have a video coming out about my favorite mechanism in that game this Friday. Yeah, that was an interesting experience. Also, I recently played Tranquility, and I did my video about Tranquility, which is not in this aspect of games at all. Tranquility is a cooperative game in the vein of The Mind, but with a spatial element to it. And I posted a video about it on Tuesday. And I also backed the Kickstarter. I realized that there was a Kickstarter that actually went live about it yesterday. Tranquility: The Ascent. So I'm excited about that. I just backed that on Kickstarter. Did you back anything on Kickstarter this week? Anything new that any new campaigns this week that you backed that you're excited about? Tony's loving Loki and the Bad Batch. I asked at the beginning of this live cast, what are you loving right now? And so Tony's answering that, the Bad Batch. So Tony, I tried to watch one of the other Star Wars animated series. I think maybe it was Rebels. and it seemed really geared towards kids, and I couldn't get into it. Is that the same for the Bad Batch, or is it more geared towards, I guess, everyone in the way that the Mandalorian was? I'm curious about that. I'm also really enjoying Loki. Chad says, "What are you reading right now? Did you get a chance to read Dark Matter?" I haven't read Dark Matter yet, but I do have a sample on my Kindle ready to read. I'm trying to read through some paper books that I have because I do have a few paper books and graphic novels that have piled up. I almost always read on my Kindle, but I'm trying to read these paper books. And so right now I'm reading an awesome book from Brent Weeks called The Way of Shadows. I loved Brent Weeks' Lightbringer series. It's a fantasy series, great magic system. And The Way of Shadows is kind of about assassins in a completely different world than the Lightbringer series. And I've really enjoyed it so far. I shouldn't have waited so long to read it because Brent Weeks is an amazing author. I really like his style of writing, and I'm really enjoying that right now. Kevin says that he has the legendary box for Scythe, and he loves how it fits all the stuff for Scythe. And he plans for a similar product for Wingspan. Yeah, you can see it on our website now. It's called the Wingspan Nesting Box. There's a big page on our website that details the design process for it. It's also mentioned in our most recent e-newsletter. We're working on it, and it should be ready in early 2022. In the e-newsletter and on our website now, there is a place where you can sign up for a launch notification when that pre-order goes live. Facebook is scrolling past some comments, so I want to read it real quick. Michael says, "Judy and I just wanted to thank you for dropping into our Nerd Shelves chat for Father's Day. You are amazing." Thank you so much for saying that, Michael. Yeah, it was awesome to drop in and hang out with you two on your Facebook or your YouTube livecast a couple Fridays ago. Yeah. All right. If I missed your question, let me know because Facebook is scrolling past some of the things here. I'm going to try to say the things that people are loving. Michelle says that she's legitimately loving that her son is legitimately winning games against me now. Looks like she has a young son. Shaked says he's loving the NADD Pod Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Justin says, "Did you happen to see last week the finals for the Disc Golf Championship?" I don't want to spoil what you said next there, Justin, but yeah, if anyone's interested in this, I summarized it. I think I did a pretty good job of summarizing it on jamiestegmeyer.com. Go to jamiestegmeyer.com and look for Monday's article, where I claimed that I think it was one of the best finales of any sporting event of all time. And I kind of go through what happened, and I share a video clip with a timestamp showing the big moment that happened. I highly recommend watching even just that moment. It's a lot of footage to watch the whole tournament, but that moment was absolutely incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah. Carol says that she's loving summer and time to play, especially Tainted Grail solo, and she's starting a weekly game night with her teacher friend. That's where she's playing Sleeping Gods. She's loving Loki and Mythic Quest on TV. Tim's loving Ice Road on Netflix. Michelle says that her family just visited Shawnee last summer. Shawnee is that national park that Megan and I went to last week and really, really enjoyed. Tony backed a Kickstarter for Bird Buddy, which is a bird feeder with a video camera that notifies you when you have a visitor and also recognizes and logs the birds that you've had stop by. That is really cool. I didn't realize that it did that. What's something cool that you backed on Kickstarter that wasn't a game or game related? Ooh, let me make a note of that. I don't want to miss any of these comments, and Facebook is scrolling pretty fast past these comments. I will come back to that question in a minute after I've comfortably caught up on questions a little bit. Max says, "Can someone point me to a notification for the Wingspan box?" Just go to the Stonemaier Games website under Wingspan and go to Nesting Box. It should be there. If that page isn't there, let me know. If that isn't showing up on mobile or something, let me know and I will go fix that. Steven says, "Have I played any of the Century Spice Road combo games?" He says he played SR and A New World last weekend. Spice Road and A New World last weekend, the combo, and it was so fun. I don't think I've played any of the combos yet. No, I want to, but I haven't yet. I've played some of the individual games. Steven's dropping by from the board game barbecue. That's awesome, Steven. Thanks for dropping by. Brist says, "I recently found out about a playmat for Scythe. Can I get through that through the Stonemaier website?" So our agreement with the company that makes the playmat is that we can sell it outside of the U.S. and outside of Canada. I think they have U.S. and Canada, but our website doesn't really work that way. So we sell it in our Australian web store because we know that's only Australian and New Zealand, but we can't sell it on our main web store yet. However, you can get it from retailers and distributors if you want to try to get that from them, if you're outside Canada and the US. Yeah. Let's see. So I'm almost caught up on questions. Hey, my cousin Carol is here. Hey, Carol, thanks for dropping by. Steven says, I may have missed it, but have I tried Hadrian's Wall? I actually have. Yeah, I just posted a video about it last Friday. So if you check out my YouTube channel last Friday, I posted my video about the amazing Hadrian's Wall. Definitely the heaviest roll and write game or flip and write game that I've ever played, but I really enjoyed it. The combos do really feel really good. Stanislav says, is there any way to buy or get an extra set of the basic wooden resources in Scythe? Uh, I appreciate you asking about that. We found that it is tough for us to sell things that are very rarely requested, and so we don't sell them. We don't sell them. However, I would recommend posting about your desire to buy them because a lot of people who have bought the realistic resources don't need their wooden resources anymore and might be happy to sell them to you. So I would post on Board Game Geek or maybe the Scythe Facebook group and ask if that's the case for anyone. You could buy their old wooden token set. Also, you might be able to get them on the Game Crafter because every now and then we sell extra wooden tokens to the Game Crafter. So if you go to the Game Crafter, you might be able to find Scythe-related wooden resources there. Shaquette says, what would be the best way to start joining board game designer social circles? I like the groups that are online. There's some great game design groups that are on Facebook. I think the Board Game Design Lab is one of the best groups there, and they actually have a separate group now on the, I think the easiest way to find it is probably the Board Game Design Lab podcast website. They have a special separate group now that you can join, the separate community. So I think that's a good way to do it. In terms of in-person game design groups, what was it's been such a long time since I've thought about meeting with random people in person. But the Meetup in I don't know if this is in Israel, but there's a website called meetup.com or meetup.org that helps you find local meetups around certain topics. And that was a great way in the US, at least, to find game design, local circles and meetups. Okay, Tim posted to the Songbird deaths. That does not sound good. I will look into that after I get off the live cast. But Tim, thank you for sharing that. Chad says Star Wars Rebels does feel geared towards kids for the first season, and then it turns towards much more adult-like. Okay, well that's good to know. Maybe I need to just skip to the season 2 or something like that. Mario also had a question about the disc golf championships, and yeah, absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. And if you even if you know nothing about disc golf, I would recommend going to my blog jamiestegmeyer.com and reading and watching the summary that I put up there on Monday because it was a thrilling finale. I think for any lover of any sport, I think might enjoy what happened in the finale there. It was incredible. Paul says, are we going to make Scythe the skirmish war game? And no. I mean, Stonemaier Games is not a war game or a skirmish or a tactical combat company. But if you're looking for that sort of thing, I'd recommend Iron Harvest, which is the video game completely independent of Scythe that just happens to take place in the same 1920 plus universe that Jakob Brzezinski created. Briss says, have I written or talked about the current mentality or decisions from gaming companies who decide to go to Kickstarter as a pre-order platform of the games and skipping local stores? Yeah, I have talked about Kickstarter as a pre-order on the blog a few times. I don't think it's particularly effective at that. In fact, I would actually recommend that companies use GameFound for that because Kickstarter specifically, by their kind of rules, is that you don't use it as a pre-order platform, that you use it to create something that doesn't exist yet. Even if you finish the design process, as I also recommend if you're launching a Kickstarter, that you haven't actually started making it yet, whereas a pre-order indicates that you've already made the thing, you're just getting ready to ship it and you want to know where to ship it. But GameFound doesn't have those restrictions, and I think GameFound is becoming a great platform for creators who just want to maybe do a reprint, a new edition, or have already made something and just want to accept pre-orders for it instead of going through that creation process. So I'm totally fine with it. I just think it's the time to find the right platform for that, and I think GameFound is that platform. Okay, I've caught up a little bit on questions here, so let me see. There was a great question about what was the last non-game Kickstarter that I backed, and let's see what that is. I think Chad asked this in reference to a bird feeder, which I didn't back, but it sounded pretty awesome. I've actually backed 2 climbing-related games recently, Tranquility the Ascent and First Ascent. Oh, okay, yeah, the last non-gaming thing. Well, I guess this is somewhat gaming-related, but there's a campaign I backed called The Bard Chronicles. Let me see if it's still live. 12 hours to go. Yeah, The Bard Chronicles. This is here's how it's a lyrical, how do I say it? It's a Dungeons and Dragons rap album. and it's if you go watch the video, it's just the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Rap is not a genre of music that I generally get excited about, but I do get excited about games, and I do get excited about good beats and songs. And the if watch the video of this campaign. It's called The Bard Chronicles. I'll post a link here in the comments. The video is absolutely incredible. Like I love the beat. I love the music of it. I love that he's rapping about tabletop games or role playing games. And I want this. I backed it. I backed it for you can back for just $1 to get the digital album, which I think the creator was underselling himself a little bit there. So I backed for $10 just to get the digital version. Um, and yeah, it's incredible. I highly recommend checking it out. There's only 12 hours to go too, so this might be your last chance to get in on the creation of it. Dylan mentioned, yeah, as I mentioned a little bit earlier from the newsletter, that viticulture is now in beta on Board Game Arena, and Tapestry, I believe, just went on alpha on Board Game Arena. So Tapestry will soon appear on Board Game Arena. And Tim, who's watching here, Tim is the developer who's working on the full AI version of Tapestry that you can play against the AI just as you can play against other human players. So that is in the works too, and we should see an alpha or a beta of that in a few months. Let's see. Tony and Tim are talking about the Bad Batch, the Star Wars series. He says that the Bad Batch is a little bit more adult oriented, so might have to give that a try. Justin backed Villagers Shifting Seasons, and he says the original game was one of his favorite card drafting games. This is an expansion for Villagers. That makes sense. Justin says, I'm hoping to start a board game club at my local library. What is some advice you can offer someone for doing this for the first time? Ooh, that's a good question. I posted recently about libraries, but I am still currently learning a lot about how a publisher can support libraries and about how libraries can support publishers, how it can go both ways. So looking to start a board game club at your local library, I think it depends on what resources your library already has. Justin, I'm guessing from previous comments that you made that you own board games, and so that might be the best starting point. Just say, hey, I'm looking to play this game. I'm looking to share this game with other people, this game that I love. Let's meet up at the library and do this. I think libraries are a great meeting space for that purpose. If the library has no games in their library at this point, this might be a good way to show them that there are people who want to go to the library and want to play games. That might encourage them to use a small part of their budget to start to carry board games. Because libraries that carry books, that's how we think about libraries, they buy all those books. They buy them from publishers at a discount, but they buy those books. And so libraries can also, if they see that there is an interest in games, they can set aside a little part of that budget to start buying games from either distributors or directly from publishers, which they can do from Stillmeyer Games on our website. Not all publishers do that, but we do have now a setup where you can go as a retailer or as a library and sign up to start to buy our games directly from us. Yeah. Let's see. Taylor says, have I considered making a disc golf dexterity game? I haven't, no, because it already exists and it's called disc golf. Disc golf is the dexterity game. I know that's not relegated just to a small table, but yeah, I mean, if I want to play disc golf, I'm not going to try to simulate it at a table. I want to go outside and play disc golf. Yeah. And also, there is a clever game that kind of exists in that realm. It's called Mars Open. It's not a disc golf game, but it is a flicking game, and it's a great game. If you're looking for that experience on the tabletop, I'd highly recommend Mars Open. Shaked says, what kind of calculations or checks do you do to balance games? He's working on his own game right now and trying to figure that out. There's a lot there. Part of it is just do a lot of playtesting and look at both the data and the anecdotal data and have a data analyst look at the data as well. Not just you, someone who's separate, outside, and who's an expert at analyzing data. Have them do that. But also at the same time, pay attention to what people's feelings are about things. Even if something is strictly balanced, but it feels unbalanced to players consistently, that can matter too. So I think it's a combination of those two things. Lots of playtesting, look at that data, analyze the data, and also look at how players are feeling about the choices they're making in the game, the choices that you're presenting to them through the game. Those are the things that I've tried to do. John says, with regards to shipping, you mentioned that there's a spike in container pricing. Yeah, I did an article about this on last Thursday. So the two articles I did recently were about freight shipping Actually, I'll get to the other one in a second. So yeah, freight shipping, there's a detailed article about freight shipping and how the most relevant number isn't the total shipping cost, but rather the per unit shipping cost and how you're selling that thing. There's a big difference between if you're selling a game to distributors and how that the shipping increase right now is impacting that on a per unit basis versus if you have sold directly to consumers like through a crowdfunding campaign. Still an increase in price, but a lot different profit margin there to think about. John's question though is there a price point where you would print Stonemaier games in the US instead? No, it really has nothing to do with price. The reason that we ship in China or that we manufacture in China, the reason is that there are so many custom components that are made at scale in China for board games that simply cannot be made in the US, that no one's making them in the US. There isn't a manufacturer for that. I would have to start a manufacturing company and buy a lot of machinery that is only made in China also and bring that machinery over. It would be a monumental endeavor to do that. Maybe someday a company will do it, but it's just so difficult because even Panda makes a lot of the stuff in-house now, but Panda also vets other factories in China that specialize in very, very specific components that aren't made anywhere else in the world. Like there's no factory, there's like maybe one factory in the world that makes very specific components for tabletop games. There aren't a lot of them. And so they just, you would have to create an entire infrastructure in the US that just does not exist here. So it's not a matter of cost. It's a matter of it just doesn't exist here yet. At scale, you can make anything. You can make 10 units of anything anywhere, but at scale, it's very different. Yeah. Max says, "How do I get inspired when designing new games? Do you start with an interesting theme or intellectual property, or do I start with gaming mechanisms?" My ideas come from all over the place. They come from fiction that I'm reading or watching. They come from other games that I'm playing. They come from video games that I hear about. I don't play a lot of video games, but I watch, I learn a lot about video games. And sometimes they just come out of nowhere. And so they start from all different places. But the early brainstorming, whenever I start to brainstorm a game, whether it starts with a mechanism or a theme early on, right away when I get that to paper, I start thinking about mechanisms that fit that theme or themes that fit that mechanism. So right away, everything kind of becomes muddled together and mixed together, making really where it starts less important. I guess one way to put it is ideas are everywhere. I have plenty of ideas. It's a matter of what do I end up focusing on? What is the execution that ends up mattering? I know that's kind of an odd comment because you're asking about where do ideas come from. And that is important as, I get ideas from all over the place. I would say, I guess the biggest answer is I play a lot of games and I get a lot of ideas from other games, things that I want to end up putting into my game. Yeah. Garden says that they're loving Red Rising. Thank you for making it for us. Thank you so much, Garden. I really appreciate that. Red Rising was definitely a long labor of love, and I hope it's bringing joy to tabletops around the world. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned it too, because we recently announced an official variant for the game to kind of tweak one little element that can be frustrating for Red Rising, which is that the variant is, and let me read it off the website exactly as worded here so I get it right. The exact wording of it is, so this is related to banishing cards. There are 5 cards in the game that can banish a card from someone's hand, and there's 1 card that can just steal a card from someone's hand. So it's related to those cards. And the official variant is when choosing 1 or more opponents to banish, potentially banish, or steal a card from their hand without the immediate ability for them to regain a card. You may only choose players who have more cards in hand than their starting hand, which for most houses is 5 cards, with series of 6 cards. So in that way, basically, you're never going to banish a card from someone's hand to bring them down to 4 cards. So you can do it. It is a powerful ability. Banishing, I think, needs to remain in the game. It makes the whole blocking element of the game, the shields, makes them relevant and important. Thematically, it's very important to the game as well. But the variant is saying you cannot do that if it would bring someone down below how many cards they had in their starting hand, which is typically, so you can't target a player basically who has 5 cards in hand. House series is a little bit different. But yeah, that's an official variant that I recommend trying out. If you had a frustrating moment with Red Rising related to that, give it another try, because that is, I think, something that we should have noticed in the playtesting, but it really didn't come up. I think for a variety of different reasons. But it's something that I think is important to address now in an official variant. Yeah. James Hudson is here. Hey, James, thanks for dropping by today. I saw you posted an excitement about Loki today. Loki's new episode is coming on Disney Plus today. I'm looking forward to watching that tonight. Vincent mentioned that there is a disc golf card game called Final Nine. Final Nine, cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I haven't heard of that. Jesse says, will we see reprinted civilizations from the base game of Tapestry with the changes made to them in the upcoming expansion? No, Jesse. We'll never see the original civilizations reprinted because they don't really need to be. There are a few civilizations that have small starting adjustments, whether to give them a little boost or a little bane, and that is all printed on a sheet of paper that you can either print from our website, and that sheet of paper is also printed in the expansion itself. The reason that we're not reprinting the civs themselves is because we are constantly gathering data about Tapestry, and it's possible that those civs might change again in the future. And we want to be able to have that possibility to keep the game as balanced as possible on an ongoing basis as we get more data, as we have more expansions or promos or things like that in the future. And it's much more, I think, responsible, I think, to just print it on a single page of paper that tweaks the starting things for those civilizations than to constantly reprint the fancy civilization mats every time. That's the reason that we're not doing that. It's much easier to just reprint it on a single piece of paper, especially since they're just starting boost and banes. They're not things that you need to remember throughout the game. There's also, if you ever forget that answer, it's on the FAQ on the Tapestry website as well. Jesse says, and just another question from Jesse, would you ever consider doing your top 100 games or joining the Dice Tower for a top 10 list? Top 100 is a lot. It's hard to even narrow games down to a top 10, but to order the whole 100 would be difficult. And I personally find, I don't know, I think people might have different experiences with this. I tend to not watch the Dice Tower top 100. I start watching when they get to the top 20 or 10. As for would I join the Dice Tower for top 10? Probably not. I'm open to joining podcasts for top threes, but if I'm going to invest a ton of time creating the top 10 list, and they do take a lot of time to both create and film, I'm going to do it for my own channel, not someone else's channel. So I'm open to doing it for a top three, but top 10s I think will stay on my YouTube channel. James says that he just paid it is around like 4 times what the cost once was. He paid $21,000 for 2 containers. And again, I would say that's a big number to throw out there. I know that's a big impact on you, James. I think the more important number is the per unit increase. So it really depends on what you had in those containers. That is kind of the I think the more relevant number to share as we're talking about these numbers with people. So the per unit increase. So James, what do you have in those containers, and what's the per unit increase related to that overall increase in price? Joshua says, am I enjoying Oath? He saw in the e-newsletter that I am playing it. Oh, I think Joshua might be asking James that question. Oh no, he's talking to me because I put it in the newsletter. I played my first game of Oath on Sunday, and I have a favorite mechanism in it, and I posted that on Friday. I don't want to dwell on negative thoughts about games. I will say that it is a game that I'll play 2 times, and I think that I'll be happy with that experience. So I'm going to play it once, and I want to play it again to see if the changes we made after the first game have an impact on the second game, if they even matter that you're carrying over stuff from game to game, and that'll be enough Oath for Jamie Stegmaier. Yeah, but I do enjoy the mechanism that I'll talk about on Friday. I really do enjoy. It uses the concept of secrets as a resource, and I think it's a very thematic, clever touch to the game. Tim says, have I tried Ghost of Tsushima? Very open world, and you can specialize in archery. I have not tried it, but I actually, even though it's a game that I haven't played, I rarely do this, but it has a mechanism that is so amazing that I did a video on it, I think almost a year ago, or whenever the game came out. It came out like 8 to 10 months ago. Whenever it came out, I did a video about my favorite mechanism in a game that I haven't played, which I rarely do, but I did that for Ghost of Tsushima. I don't typically play video games like that, or video games in general, unless it's a board game port. But I thought it had a pretty amazing mechanism we're talking about on my channel. Stan says, have I ever tried any of the silver games? I don't think I have tried any of the silver games, no. Glenn says, do you need the Rise of Fenris to fully enjoy the Scythe world? If you're looking for a campaign game, Sure, there's no other campaign in Scythe, but yeah, to enjoy Scythe, I think all you really need is the base game, and you can then add on stuff from there. But yeah, start with the base game, and if you enjoy it, then you can add other stuff if you'd like. Tim says, I've seen that Gale Force 9 is releasing a reworked version of the 2019 edition of Dune to streamline it and connect it with the upcoming movie. With that Dune Imperium and the other Dune game using the detective engine, it looks like a good time to be a Dune fan. Oh, I thought there was a question coming here, Tim, but there wasn't. But you're just talking about Dune Imperium. I love Dune Imperium. That's one of my favorite games from the last, 8 months. Really, really enjoy it. James says our games are big in size. You do make big games, James. He says so the per unit impact is larger. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if you have like Scythe for Scythe, there are 4 units of Scythe in a carton, and so if that cost used to be around $2 per unit, $2 per unit to freight ship Scythe, and that cost is now going up by 3 to 4 times, and so that cost per unit now jumped from $2 to around $6 to $8, which is, given that we sell Scythe directly to distributors instead of directly to consumers for the most part, that's a big cut into the profit margins for Scythe. I think it has yeah. So fortunately, we do sell some games directly to consumers, and that does help out quite a bit. But yeah, it's rough when you're selling those games directly to distributors and you have big games that you're selling to them. Yeah. And Tony says Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory came out 50 years ago today on June 30th. In honor of that and the chocolate of the day, my chocolate of the day. Oh, I didn't even get that far in the story. We went to Shawnee National Forest in Illinois, and we went to DQ twice on the trip. That's Dairy Queen. We hardly ever go to Dairy Queen, but we went there and got some chocolatey goodness. That was my chocolate of the day. Tony says, in honor of that and the chocolate of the day, what's one candy from that movie that you'd love to have for real? And that for me is definitely the chocolate river. I love the concept of a chocolate river, even though I think in real life it would be kind of gross. Like, I don't actually want to put my body in a chocolate river, but to have a chocolate river where I can just kind of dip into it, dip a mug into it and have a steaming warm cup of liquid chocolate, that to me sounds incredible. So that would be my candy of choice from Willy Wonka. Naziz says, will there ever be a horror-themed Stonemaier game in the future? Probably not. That's not a genre that I generally gravitate towards in any realm. Like, I generally stay away from scary movies. They're not for me. I get too scared, and it's not a type of game that I generally gravitate towards or think about in terms of design. But what's your favorite horror game? Do you have a favorite horror or scary themed game? One that I'll throw out there that I really enjoyed was I think it's called The Last Friday or Last Friday. It's a hidden movement game where the tables turn, as in many horror movies, where kind of you're being chased at the beginning of the game, and then you become the one chasing the bad guy, and then they end up chasing you. Really clever theme in this game. I think it's called Last Friday, but if I'm getting that wrong, someone can correct me in the comments here. Tim says, any idea when Wingspan will be available on PS4? I have no idea when any of the digital stuff happens. It happens when Monster Couch tells me. So right now, all I know is that it just came out on Xbox, and it will be coming to iOS in a few weeks. Hopefully on Android soon, too. It's taken a long time to get it to Android. And I have no idea about PS4 now. A few other topics I wanted to cover today. I did an article on Monday, or I posted an article. It was written by Director of Sales Alex about Wingspan appearing in Target and the long journey to get Wingspan into Target. So if you're curious about how a game might end up in Target and not a Target exclusive, just a regular game ends up in Target, feel free to check out that article on Monday. I also did a top 10 video this Sunday about my top 10 games that have game trays in them. And I mean game trays specifically, the brand game trays, which is run by a friend of mine here in St. Louis, Noah. He has put game trays in several Stonemaier games, and he has also done that for a variety of other games. I think nearly 150 games now have game trays in them, in the box. When you just buy the game, you get a game trays with it. I think actually James Hudson's here. James has definitely worked with game trays a couple times. The Grim Forest has some amazing trays from game trays. I believe Tidal Blades also has game trays. Yeah, so I did a list about that if you're interested in, if you like trays, thinking about trays in games and organizational structures in games. What are the other topics today? I played my fifth and last tutorial session of Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, and I actually filmed a video about that game, what I learned from Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. That will go live in a few weeks. That'll be a Sunday video. What else did we do? Uh, Yesterday, I saw my coworkers, Joe and Alex. I didn't see Alan wasn't able to make it, but I saw those guys as we tried to make a small adjustment that we need to make. It's kind of stuff that is not customer facing. But it was nice to see them in person the other day, and we're actually getting together for a play test on Friday, so it'll be good to see them again. I found that I don't take for granted seeing people anymore because throughout the pandemic, I saw other people so little that now it's just it's a joy, it's a special event to even just see another human being, especially someone that I talk to every day through emails and whatnot through Stomar Games internal stuff. So it's just always a pleasure to see them. And things I've been watching recently that I've been enjoying. Netflix movie The Stowaway or Stowaway. Enjoyed that. Really surprising movie. Really enjoyed that. And of course Euro 2020, the big soccer football tournament happening in Europe right now. I have really been enjoying just watching the highlights of that. But I appreciate one thing I appreciate is with soccer highlights often they cut it down to just like the very moment the goal happens. And I think the people who create highlights have gotten a lot better at it and realizing that some of the highlights of the game aren't shots on goal, aren't goals. They extend the play well before, like the build up to the goal itself. That is just as interesting as the goal itself. And great defensive plays, great saves, things like that. And so I think highlights creators have gotten a lot better at doing that. And so I've really been enjoying the kind of the 6 to 10 minute highlight reels for the Euro 2020 tournament. Really been enjoying that. Tony says, "How's my dad doing, and how did Megan feel? The QA session went a couple weeks ago." I thought Megan did a great job. I think Megan is still a little shy about it, but I think she had a good experience joining us for that 20 minutes. What two weeks ago on the livecast. Thank you all for being so welcoming to her on the livecast for her first time appearing on camera for anything recorded like this. How's my dad doing? He is feeling well. They are still doing a lot of tests on for him for cancer related tests, and things aren't looking great in that realm. Unfortunately, I think there's more cancer to be identified and addressed in my dad's oddly otherwise healthy body. He's lived such a very healthy life. I think he's predisposed to cancer, and he's dealing with that right now. So right now they're kind of just waiting on some answers. There's another biopsy in the works right now that they're waiting on. Appreciate you asking about that, Tony. Thank you for asking about that. Yeah. Thank you for saying that and asking about it. Carol says, "Am I going to keep going with Jaws of the Lion, or was I just interested in the tutorial scenarios?" I I was mostly just interested in the tutorial scenarios, but I walked away with a much greater appreciation of Gloomhaven than I had before, and so that's why I spent quite a bit of time yesterday filming an extensive video about what I learned about the game. Tony mentions Horrified and Nemesis. I really want to play Nemesis, and actually I've heard great things about Horrified too. I want to play that as well, but Nemesis I'm really curious about. And Carol also asked, did this method help you enjoy Gloomhaven in general more? And yeah, that was one of my major takeaways of Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Rather than throwing me into, well, so I played like 5 or 6 games of the original Gloomhaven, and every time it just felt like too much. It was too long. It was too much. I don't know. And it also wasn't what I expected. I was expecting more decisions than just kill all the bad guys. But the format of introducing me to concepts one step at a time with baby steps through the Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion tutorial made me really appreciate a lot of the mechanisms in the game a lot more than I previously did. And it made me value tutorials even more than I already do. I think tutorials are an amazing way of helping players get into games. I even have actually a video about my favorite tutorials that'll be coming up on my YouTube channel in the near future because I've come to appreciate them even more than ever before. Yeah. And what did any of you have that experience too? Did you play the original Gloomhaven? And I know it's the #1 game in the world. I would actually say now that Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion I think is the superior of the two games. But I'm curious what you think. If you appreciate Gloomhaven more due to Jaws of the Lion, or if you just enjoy Gloomhaven the way it was up front and you didn't need that baby stepping introduction to get you into the game and have you appreciate the mechanisms, as was the impact of Jaws of the Lion's tutorial on me. Chad's sister is having surgery tomorrow for cancer. Another cancer-related story among the people here. I'm sorry to hear that, Chad. We'll keep her in our thoughts. Tonk says, what's your take on campaign expansions? I've made one, obviously the Rise of Fenris, but you've also expressed that you don't think all games are suited for the concept. Yeah, and I think part of it too is that I don't want long campaigns anymore. I think it's easy to get excited about a long campaign, an epic campaign that lasts 50 games. But who is really going to play 50 games um, of any game? I get much more excited now about campaigns that I can play over maybe 3 sessions, 3 or 4 sessions at most. And you're right. Not all games are geared exactly towards the campaign format. There are certain games that I don't want to play campaigns of. I just want to reset everything and replay it every time. Most Euro games are that way. I just want to sit down and play the game and then start from scratch and try something different, try a different path in that game. Um, I've seen Alexander Pfister do some interesting things with campaigns, but I never actually played one of his campaigns because when I play Maracaibo, I just want to play Maracaibo. I don't really care about the campaign, but I do think it's impressive that he's tried to build that story, that narrative arc into otherwise what are considered Euro games. So I think it's interesting that he's pushing those boundaries, but for me, I I'm happy to play Euro games in particular. Happy to just play them and reset them and play them again. Yeah. Thank you. I see some other people chiming in with thoughts about my dad. I really appreciate that. Uh, yeah, I do appreciate it. My dad's had a good life. He's had a really good life. I'm very fortunate that I've had such an amazing dad, and I hope he lives for a long, long time going forth. I know a lot of other people are suffering from things much more sudden right now, and so I appreciate those thoughts, but I also want to keep those people in my thoughts and prayers. People are suffering um, from all sorts of things: depression, anxiety, the tower collapse, the condo tower collapse in Florida, things around the world. I mean, there are tragedies that happen every day, and I'm just grateful that I've had uh, that I've had 40 years with my dad. And I hope that that'll be longer. And I'm glad my dad's had what 67, 68 years, and that even though this is somewhat sudden, the latest thing that they identified that he's still alive, that he's still going to have a good day today. He's going to have a good day tomorrow, and I'm really grateful for that. Yeah. Olivia says she loves Jaws of the Lion a lot, or she likes it a lot, but the campaign of Gloomhaven is so good. And Olivia, actually, I love your thoughts on this about this because I was just talking about campaigns. So one of the things that actually turned me off from the original Gloomhaven a little bit was the length of the campaign. It was so big, and I think that adds to an epic experience, but just so long. Could it have been better if it had been tighter? And that's one of the things I actually forgot to mention in my Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion video. But I really appreciate that it's just 25 games. 25 games is still a ton of games. But I appreciate that there are just 25 scenarios in it because that seems like something that I could actually complete if I really got into the game. Same with Sleeping Gods. I love that Sleeping Gods that it is a commitment to play through a campaign of it, but it's probably around 15 hours. So that's I don't know 3, 4, maybe 5 sessions, and then you're done. You can play a new campaign if you want, or you can be done with the game and have a fully satisfied experience from doing it. Um, when I played Gloomhaven, actually the original thing, one of the things I played Gloomhaven that I when I started, I was like, what the heck is going on here? To retire, like, there's kind of like mini campaigns within the campaign related to your character, how you need to retire a character. And it takes so long to retire a character. I love the concept of it, but I was like, I'm not going to play this game enough to actually retire a character. Um, just a Isaac went big. I love that he went epic, but I wonder if there's something to be said about tighter, shorter, more streamlined campaigns. If that can be better. It's kind of like if you hear about a new TV show and you hear that it went on for 20 seasons and that to get the full experience of it, you need to watch 20 seasons of it, compared to a show that you hear about that lasted a tight 4 seasons, like The Good Place. Um, I prefer the 4 season show. Even if it's a show I end up really loving, I prefer the shorter show. Yeah. That's my thoughts, but this is a long way from me saying, what do you think about that, Olivia? Do you like how long and epic the campaign is, or do you think there's a possibility that it could have been better if it was shorter and tighter? Carol says the book map alone made Jaws of the Lion better for us, and yeah, the book map in Jaws of the Lion is absolutely brilliant. To use this book that you just open up to the scenario page, you don't have to dig through and find tile A out of 26 different tiles. That is an incredible innovation for Jaws of the Lion. And Carol also says, my son was able to handle the tutorials, uh, and because of the tutorials, he could actually play. Yeah, same here, same here. Really incredible tutorials. Tony says his group played Fantasy Realms for the first time last night. This is one of my favorite filler games, and it was the inspiration for Red Rising. He says, I own Red Rising, and another person in our group bought Fantasy Realms and was concerned they were too similar, but after playing, we're sure there's room for both in our rotation. And I completely agree. I don't think it needs to be one or the other. I think both, I don't want to say they belong in any collection, but I think they both fit in any collection. If you're looking for a filler game and then a medium weight Euro game. Keith is joining us here from Thunderworks Games. Keith says he's been playing The King's Dilemma recently, a game that I recently finished, and he seems like the 12 to 15 game length is more ideal for me. Yeah, I think that's especially with the length of the games in King's Dilemma. They can be maybe an hour at most, but we played a lot of games that lasted only 30 minutes, and that was awesome. That was I think the length of the game paired with the length of the campaign is great when it's around 12 to 15 games, where games are lasting 30 to 45 minutes. Charterstone, I did a 12 game campaign. Rise of Fenris, I think it's either 7 or 8 games. I think maybe it's 8 games. I think that's my personal sweet spot. I love Shards of Infinity being only 5 games. No, 3 to 5 games, I think it was. And The Emergence of Shy Pluto, that's the expansion for Space Base. That was 5 games. That was awesome. So those kind of those streamlined 5 game campaigns that still give you a story that you can finish in 1 to 2, maybe 3 settings. I'm really enjoying those, personally. Steven says he loves the 3-episode Tamasaga of the West Kingdom. I definitely need to try that at some point. Yeah. Uh, Tim has a nice comment here. He says, grateful for the time that we have, for sure. Anytime I get down about my loss, I just remember how good I had it throughout the years. Not everyone feels that love, unfortunately. And it's tough. Yeah, I mean, if you've had a major loss, it is really, really hard to... and I will experience that someday. Someday my parents will pass on, and I will be devastated. I'm devastated even just thinking about it. But I'm also grateful for the time I had with them. Right now, I want to be grateful of that while I can say that to them, while I can have my Sunday call with them and enjoy that time, learning about them, sharing our lives with each other. Yeah. Yeah. Tim also says, you do your father proud being such a positive person in the community. And I hope so. I learned a lot from my dad in those regards. He has spent his life trying to be fair to people and be positive and be good to people. And I've tried to carry on that tradition. Same with my mom. Yeah. Chaz says, what's your favorite book where the whole story is told by the perspective of one person? I think Red Rising is. I think Red Rising is told by just one person. But another first-person perspective book, I have to forget about the perspectives after I've moved on to other books. So I don't know. It's hard to answer that one on the spot, Chad. Do you have one in mind that you were thinking of when you asked that? I think I've gotten to the end of the comments today and the questions. I think I've covered all the topics that I wanted to cover today. My cousin Carol chimed in to say that she had a call from my mom and dad a few weeks ago, and it was a wonderful surprise. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really, yeah. That's a good reminder, Carol. That sometimes random calls to people that you haven't heard from in a while can mean a lot. A random email, random text even can mean a lot. Let's end on that note. Let's end on a positive note. Grateful for the people in my life. Grateful for you joining me today. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna toss this video over on YouTube. If you have any other thoughts or questions, head over to YouTube and you can comment there. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Enjoy the e-newsletter if you're getting that in your inbox now. Yeah, take care. Have a great day. Bye.